Yeah, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm in the middle of the map, so it's great to meet you.
Okay. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Cool, man. Well, I'm really interested in your life as a recovery specialist, and I want to get
Mhm.
to kind of the heart and soul of what you do for a living. And the beginning of my conversation with you is I'd like to start with 4 years ago. We were all looking at this pandemic, trying to figure out how it was going to materialize, how long it was going to last, how it was going to affect us. How did you get through that time period, and how did it change you?
I got to tell you, maybe it's superficial. The only thing that really changed for me was the fact that I don't have to wear suits anymore.
Okay.
That when we got out of the pandemic, I mean, this is really like nobody wears suits anymore.
Right.
So I go to these places, these events, and everyone is more casually dressed. As far as what I do for a living, what I observed was something that was really problematic. When I looked at places like Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, and their treatment of people with addiction problems, they were doing these outpatient programs virtually. So the client was at home and they were doing an outpatient. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's alcohol in their drink. They're smoking. They're doing I mean, it was so ineffective. And to me, it felt like they were ripping people off by offering them that service that I don't think really worked. Now, you may not agree with the politics in Florida, but Florida still was up and running as far as traditional rehabs were concerned. People were coming in, and they were getting the help that they needed. But I think that COVID period was devastating for people with addiction problems, especially in those states where people couldn't come together
Yeah.
and do the work and be monitored, regular urines, and eyes on a person versus virtually. So
Yeah.
I think there were problems with that. I'm sure there were some successes, but I think those successes were lessened because of the pandemic. Um, I would not see someone who was, on the edge of staying clean and sober virtually. I just, listen, if we're going to meet, we have to meet face to face.
Yeah.
Now, somebody with longer term recovery that's stable in their recovery, we can meet virtually. But the people that are struggling, I might meet with you one or two times, but that is only to assess you, to get you into treatment. That it's kind of like, I don't want to sound dramatic, but I don't want anybody to die on my watch.
Yeah.
And my job is not to save the world, but to help people and guide people in their recovery. And the best guide that I could give somebody that was not stable was, you got to go to detox or a residential a program to get more help. But seeing me for 50 minutes, once or twice a week isn't going to be sufficient.
Plus, during that time, everybody's level of getting into whatever they were doing addiction wise probably spiked. So, yeah, I mean, if they already have a drink in their hand and they're doing a remote session, it's not gonna, I can't imagine there's gonna be any level of magic words virtually that's gonna make it stop. I mean, it really, that's where the human element of COVID really comes in. I think
Mhm.
as connected as we were with technology, we realize there is something that is very necessary in our human march down here that has to be done in person.
Yeah, but you know what? In the 12-step rooms, I think Zoom really opened up a lot.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people going to 12-step meetings. You could meet people from all over the world in these meetings. I think it really did good. It was something that I had to adjust to, at least from my personal recovery. I wasn't used to doing a meeting via Zoom, but after I got used to it, it became convenient for me that I could go to a meeting at any time. And where when I had to drive there, I was limited in some ways, but because of COVID and because of Zoom, I was able, it was just more convenient. Um, the unfortunate part of it is now I visit Connecticut and because my family lives there. And if I try to go to a face-to-face meeting now, they've shut a lot of those down and they're all Zoom. So you've lost some of the face-to-face stuff to Zoom, which for me now, I would personally rather go face to face than Zoom. Zoom is an option for me if I'm busy and I have other things that I have to do, but I would prefer to go face to face if I could. And I think COVID and Zoom affected that in some ways negatively in places that shut down their meetings and never reopen them. And then that's unfortunate for new people
Yeah.
because they don't get that face to face human connection in a 12-step meeting that they would get if they were open, and they only have the virtual now.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day, and one of the kids curiously says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
Well, I would let the say, listen, what I do is I help families better communicate and achieve, I don't know, happiness and a better relationship with each other. And one of the ways that we do this, or one of the ways that I do this, is we talk about how they're living their lives, what kinds of things that they're putting into their lives that are good for them, and what kind of things that they put in their lives that aren't so good. So, I would talk about a healthy diet. I would talk about exercise. I would talk about, at least a weekly family meeting where families could get together and talk to each other. But I would also talk about things that are harmful, like alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. Um, I'm not a teacher and I don't know, I don't work with adolescents, so I don't exactly know the level of understanding of an adolescent and how you might explain that. But I would talk about drugs, alcohol, and probably cigarettes, and those pills that are in the medicine cabinet. And in order to, I might even talk about depending how inspired I am and who this kid is, I maybe talk about cheating. And sometimes you're cheating in relationships when you use this other stuff like marijuana or alcohol. And the people who are not cheating are able to have a conversation or be with people without that. And so, I don't think children always get an opportunity to share how they feel and think. I think people are still under this idea that, children should be seen and not heard. What's said in our house stays in our house. Um, and we have to allow children an opportunity to open up and also understand that children, younger people are interpreting things as children do, and they often get it wrong. So, what are they learning about communication? What are they learning about family? What are they learning about love? How are they interpreting it? Interpreting it? And I think as adults, we have to get with children and find out what's going on in their minds that they don't always talk about. We have to give them permission to talk about what I'm going to call their secret thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And get that healthy communication out, because most people in recovery, these are adults now that have no understanding or no practice in sharing their feelings. They're able to share their thoughts. The feeling that they're able to share sometimes is anger, laughter, or sadness, which comes across as self-pity, but hurt, shame, fear, loneliness are not a part of that language, because I think people feel too vulnerable to talk about that. So if I talk about my hurt, fear, shame, or loneliness, somehow you're going to do something to me, take advantage of me, and I feel too vulnerable in those ways. And helping people establish courage and understanding vulnerability can be a strength is kind of the, I think, the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Um, I wanted to be a comedian, an actor. I wanted to be a farmer, but I think in I wanted to be an adventurer,
Yeah.
and I loved nature shows, National Geographics, Mutual of Omaha, Wild Kingdom. And I would imagine being kind of out there on safari and, I had no interest. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be anything boring. That's what I would consider boring, an engineer or anything like that. I wanted to be out there. The only, what I would say, is the traditional work that I wanted to be or that I admired in others was school guidance counselors. I just thought that was an interesting thing. So I think that's what I lean towards. Listen, I'm not a school guidance counselor, but what I do is similar to that.
Yeah.
And that is really where my strength is. So I don't have strength in numbers, understanding numbers or kind of things that a mathematician or an engineer. I'm not a good studier. So I'm not going to read a book and get through it within a reasonable time, because as soon as I pick up a book, I'll read a couple of pages and fall asleep. Or as I'm reading it, I just kind of space out. So I move towards a more creative, although I'm not a painter or a musician, I'm creative in my thinking. And so that creativity shows in the work that I do with people. So, I'm more creative. I'm not as traditional in coaching or counseling with people as some are.
So you operate as an inspiration, as a changer for people. Who has that been for you? Who's been a hero or an inspiration for you in your life?
So, when you started asking that question, I knew where we were going with this. And I always feel sad because I don't feel like I had that.
Right.
That I felt like I was a lonely kid who had to figure it out for himself. And I didn't want anybody to know that I was a lonely kid trying to figure it out for myself. So I had to present as more confident than I really was, because, again, I didn't want to show vulnerability. So I didn't have male role models to follow after. So I present in one way, but on the inside, I felt insecure, inadequate, less than, because my assumption was every other boy had these people and I didn't. And then again, that's what a child thinks what they think. And they often get it wrong, because looking back at it now, I knew a lot of boys that didn't have mentors. I just did a blog and I talked about, I wasn't interested in sports. I didn't play on any teams. I didn't play basketball, football, baseball, or anything. And I wasn't interested in sports, but I felt insecure about that because everybody else seemed to be. So there was a part of me, the physical part of me, felt less than because I wasn't into sports the way everybody else was, but I was physically as strong as anybody else. And over time, I don't know, I got into running, and at 51, I ran an ultra marathon, 155 miles through the Sahara Desert. Um, I lived in the mountains of Mexico with the Tarahumara Indians. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I ran several marathons, half marathons, 10Ks. I engaged in CrossFit for 14 years. Um, so I engaged in a lot of physical activity. So I looked up in the dictionary professional, and I looked up the word athlete, and I put them both together. And putting those two words together, you look in the dictionary of what a professional athlete was, it was me. Everything that I was doing was consistent with the definition of professional athlete. And at 58 years old, I named myself a professional athlete. And I've never won a trophy or plaque or anything, but I gave myself that trophy and that plaque of that designation that I was a professional athlete, and I've done anything and everything a professional athlete did and could do. And I'm probably physically more fit than most real professional athletes at my age.
Yeah.
So I'm 65 years old. So these are all the esteemable things that I've done in recovery, that prior to recovery, I had a lot of ideas about things that I wanted to do, but I never actually did them. Recovery gave me the ability to do what I thought that I could do and things that I thought that I couldn't do. It talked to me about perseverance and practice and over. So even when I engage in physical activity, the end result is, you finish the activity. But what I appreciate more is the months of training,
Yeah.
because that's the foundation of it. The end result, that's icing, but the real work and what I really got was in the training. And it's the same thing in recovery. It's the practice of principles. It's the practice of going to meetings. It's a practice of being consistent in these things that makes it all worthwhile, that helps me to feel better about myself. And this is what I try to help other people with. So I'm not trying to pull some slick therapy, blah, blah, blah with people. Listen, people come to me because they want to talk to me. They're willing to pay to talk to me. And I've been helpful with people in the very best that I can be. If I can't help someone with anything specific, I refer them to somebody else that can do that.
Yeah.
But there's something about people's ability to have someone to talk to that is so therapeutic, more so than any specific therapy or medication. It's just, I want to connect with someone. And, that's why a lot of people come to me. I don't, I'm on social media now over the last 2 or 3 years, but I've had a thriving practice that comes from word of mouth.
Yeah.
That, one person told somebody else that told somebody else. And that's what I do. You know, I'm a high school graduate, and then I became a certified addiction counselor, and then I became certified interventionist, certified structured family recovery counselor, internationally certified in Florida, certified in Texas. So I got all these certifications, but I never got a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. But I feel like I'm not going to compare myself to a PhD or master's level person, because I think we both have different skill sets. But I don't know that a person with an MD in psychiatry or a master's in social work or mental health counseling or a PhD has done any more or less work than I have to help the people that needed help. There was a part of me at times that used to think I was lesser because I didn't have that. But what I had to acknowledge and what I learned in recovery was, Michael, you got talent. You have something that some of those people don't have. And that's what makes a difference. Listen, don't hire me to be your accountant because I'm going to screw up all your money.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to do surgery on you because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But I know how to do this. This is natural for me. That's why I don't get burnt out on it because I just do it naturally and I know what my limits are. Listen, I'm going on vacation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to not go on vacation, because of something else. Um, so this is, kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
So of all of these things that you've done for decades, all of the people that you've helped, all of the ways that you've evolved as a human, what are you the proudest of?
Um, I'm the proudest of my ability to help others. I started a not-for-profit, and the kind of the conflict in the head was, Michael, why are you starting a not-for-profit helping children when you're supposed to be helping people with addiction problems? And then I told myself, well, you know what? I've been doing that for 30 years. I can expand and help other people. There are other people in need. So I started a not-for-profit, and I help kids in the remote areas of Africa with education. The only way they get out of their situation is through education, and through no fault of their own. They're born in the places that they're born. I work with one group they were born in the hottest place on earth, and it's hot all the time.
Yeah.
They have no refrigerator, they have no air conditioning, they have no green grass and water to farm and all that stuff. They have literally nothing. And the only way they get out is education. So I provide, calculators, computers, pens, pencils, crayons, notebooks, reading books, anything that I can, and I bring it over there. I've got 8 huge suitcases that I'm going to bring to Ethiopia on June 5th, um, to a school out there. I've cemented the classroom floors. I got them 60 desks, for the students to sit at a desk. So I do what I can. The thing that I've realized is, we're all walking in life and seeing people who need stuff. And we look at it, oh, that person doesn't have this, they need this, that, and the other. And you just keep going. What I've done now is, you know what, Michael, I need to respond to that. I can't just observe people in need and not respond to it. And I'm not being like, oh, overly giving, but how can I help this person? Listen, right now I have 3 TVs in my house. I can only watch one, and I hardly watch that. Why do I have so much stuff? So I do have stuff to give away, and it's no big deal to give it away.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you out there, family, friends, clients, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I've got a good heart and a good soul, and I care about people. I almost started this answer with how flawed I am, but yeah, I have flaws. But I think my positives stand out more than my flaws, and my flaws are opportunities for me to grow, and I'm working on them. So I don't blame myself for not being the absolute best that I can be. It's just something I need to work on. I don't know if I'll ever get to that place of complete self actualization and the best that I can be and consistent with everything. But what I can say is I'm consistently working on myself. And through that consistency, I've received a lot of benefits. And when I benefit, other people benefit. So when I
Absolutely.
take care of myself, other people are taken care of.
Yeah. Well said. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to hire you, any of the good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
They can go to coachmichaelherbert.com. They can go to recoveryguide.net. They can go to africanhopefulhorizons.org, or they can call me at 561-221-7677. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and I think TikTok.
Excellent. Michael, this has been wonderful. You're a wonderful human. Thank you for your story. Thank you for the light you're giving to the world. I appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.